And this is all LPD here.
Yeah.
So clearly they coordinated this with multiple agencies, and this is a coordinated approach now. I'm sure they knew to expect something like this given the events of the past few days.
Right. Yeah, and this situation looks like, pretty wrapped up at this point. I mean, there was those people that we saw with Lori that were being taken into custody. By the way, a CNN reporter was detained at that location as well, and detained, put in handcuffs briefly, and then escorted out of the area. It doesn't sound like they ever processed him or took him, but I was just looking at our, we're a CNN affiliate technically, so I was looking at some of the video they were putting up on the server of that interaction happening. CNN crew it says they were removed by police from a protest zone in downtown, but this reporter was, had his hands behind his back, and the security guard that they were with, and they were escorted out with their hands behind their back from that location.
I wonder if that's because they didn't disperse when they asked them to.
Yeah, we're not exempt from that. We work with our local law enforcement about where we're supposed to be, where it's safe for us. Certainly, we have a constitutional right to do what we're doing, but to an extent, and we go to trainings with law enforcement to be able to know where we're okay to be in certain.
Your position?
I just moved back a little to avoid being pepper bombed or pepper sprayed. But I'm like right in that same intersection that we've been talking about. I mean, we're just, just a little back from it at 2nd and San Pedro. So the crowd is dispersed, as I'm sure you can probably see a bit, but there's still a lot of people that are still here. It's just more scattered. And we're still hearing these huge booms, and I don't know where those are coming from, if those are from the CHP or the officers or from the people here in the street. But yeah, there's people lingering. There's a number of people kind of watching on the side. That has to be from the CHP. Those two boom sounds. Yeah, I don't. What is that, Mike? Is that a flash bomb, or is that?
Yeah, it's a mix of tear. Sometimes they're using tear gas. Most of the time they're using tear gas, but they're shooting it out of a launcher. So it shoots and then it delay kind of, I don't want to say explodes, but ignites, and so it looks like a firework. We see a flash like a firework, but it's actually a canister of tear gas.
I wonder where they're shooting it, because we're directly in front of them and I don't see them landing. I did see one. Oh wait, I think I see where one of them hit, but we're like directly in front of them. I mean, obviously down the street. So I'm wondering which direction are they firing it toward, like on San Pedro?
Yeah, they're standing in the intersection and they're shooting it towards San Pedro. So there's a couple of officers right there on the corner of the intersection and then shooting it down San Pedro.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like some of the folks that are here still are kind of moving back toward the intersection now. It definitely feels like, like they're not ready to give up this confrontation. But, I would say officers and CHP will have them outnumbered pretty shortly if they don't already.
Well, we're looking at a number of people in your shot where they just look like they're looky-loos, or they're there just to see what they can see. Some of them are holding flags. Others we can see running. And a lot of people they're live streaming. They're using this as a social media event. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly, Pat. Yeah, that's so true. Now everyone's running again, so that must mean they fired some sort of pepper spray or some sort of pepper bomb this direction, because everybody's surging back. And you can hear the rapid fire boom, boom, boom. They are being more aggressive, meaning the CHP or.
Searching for my turtle's head is one of the scariest things possible. Not only do I have to worry about him taking my finger off, I could also potentially.
To my left, she's offering people eye washing if they've been affected by the pepper spray. I actually can't feel any of it yet or taste it. What I can smell and sort of taste is the smell of paint, because people are tagging the buildings, and the smell is so strong. At first I thought it was pepper spray, and I just saw the guy next to me, he's moved. He had a huge can of red spray paint in his back pocket, and I don't know if it was him or someone else who has red spray paint, but the building to my right, this federal something building, has got a bunch of red tagged spray paint stuff all over the walls. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm seeing more officers now, and I'm seeing fewer in the crowd. You can tell that these tactics are having the desired effect for LAPD officers. There's much fewer people here, and I think that the just sort of shock and awe of the boom, boom, and then of course of the tear gas. It's enough to. I mean, that stuff is very effective. There are people here that have gas masks on, though. There's a lot of people, and sort of face masks as well. But I think there are people here with goggles and all kinds of things to try to stop the spray paint from. Or not spray paint, from the pepper spray from affecting them.
And Tom, are you on 2nd Street or you're on 2nd Street, right?
Yeah, I'm on 2nd Street. I'm looking at the San Pedro sign. Yeah, I'm looking at from my vantage point, so I can see the San Pedro Street sign like from the traffic light from where I'm standing. And we're like a half block back. We were right on top of it, for a bit, but then it was just getting too tense and too volatile. Like our photographer here, Anna, who's doing an amazing job, was like, this is the moment, and she was absolutely right, because after that, I think the CHP really started engaging and deploying their less than lethal tactics.
Well, it's I don't think you can see from our vantage point, Tom, but where those officers have apparently, CHP, a lot of them have moved from that front line position further into the crowd, and we've seen the crowd periodically move up these dumpsters, and it almost looked like they were trying to form a line full of dumpsters, as if that would stop law enforcement from coming through. And now we see a vehicle going pretty fast here. Looks like they're going to try to be closer. Now they're going to turn around.
And Pat, I think the officers are pushing forward too. Mm-hmm. They may be doing that move where they rush forward. Oh, yeah, and there's
vehicle was thought at first this car was going to try to go through, but no, they turned around and they're coming back in the opposite direction.
Which really is the best situation.
Okay, so so I don't know. The crowd's responding again. They're kind of pushing back, but I can't really see. Oh, I see. Oh, look, you can see. Yeah, the officers have now formed a line, and they're moving further and further down 2nd Street, and they are pushing the crowd back to the point where. They've almost cleared the entire crowd. Now that a little scary there for a second. I thought there's a Toyota Corolla that accelerated very quickly toward the officers, and it was unclear what it was going to do, but the driver turned around now. So that's good. Everything just seems volatile right now, right? After several days of this, you just don't know. Yeah, no, this is all right.
and Tom, I want to just point out to our viewers really quickly, if we can, put the inset back with Tom in the helicopter, because where Tom is on 2nd Street, where SkyCal is San Pedro Street. Now you have the officers at the intersection there. They have split into 2 lines. So you have a line of officers that are walking down 2nd Street to where Tom is, and then you have a second line of officers that is walking down San Pedro Street. So earlier when we talked about how on 2nd Street there were 3 blocks of law enforcement officers that were moving through the area, that's why, so that they could split, and half of them could go down 2nd Street, and half of them could go down San Pedro Street. As we begin shortly here, KCAL News at 10, Juan Fernandez, Susie Sa here with us at the anchor desk. This is certainly the most activity we have seen in quite some time tonight, guys.
We thought it was a quieter evening when we came to you last. First of all, during the 7 o'clock hours when we saw the protests really thin out, and the crowds were really thinning out, and there were no dispersal orders officially at the time, but police did have some big vans or a big bus ready to detain people if need be, but we actually didn't see that happen.
By the time that we handed over the newscast to Ruta Bay and Pat, things seemed calm. I walked away feeling like, okay, perhaps the worst of the night is over, but of course, as the evening progressed, we did see things get a little more tense. But there from SkyCal, Mike, you're looking at a pretty clear street. So I'm guessing it's just smaller groups of protesters that are hanging back.
Yeah, well, and thankfully what happened is, and this is what happens every time law enforcement pushes forward, they've splintered. So you had a group go down 2nd, you had a group go down San Pedro, which made the group a lot smaller, which of course is good news, because every time the group splits, that's what we want, is for it to get smaller. So Tom is there on 2nd Street, the chopper is looking at San Pedro Street, and on San Pedro Street anyway, there seems to be a few more people, but they're very, very spread out, and there's even, I think even less people on 2nd Street where Tom is.
All right, for those of us just joining us right now, This is KCAL News at 10 o'clock. Another night of protests against immigration raids here in Southern California.
Well, within the last few minutes, things have escalated dramatically with protesters firing fireworks at police.
And police are out in force in downtown LA. We counted more than 50 police cars. Look at this, from departments across Southern California, all lined up and blocking streets.
Well, on night 4 of the protest, police are doing mass arrests. Our KCAL News crew there as officers are cuffing people who ignored an order to leave.
And the protests also spreading south to Santa Ana. Tensions between police and protesters boiling over, with law enforcement going into the crowd to go after this guy in the yellow hoodie.
Also tonight, Marines are reportedly rolling toward downtown LA after the defense secretary mobilized hundreds of them. Another 2,000 National Guard troops have also been federalized and called up. But what are they all going to do once they get here?
All right, let's go back to our Tom Waite, also in downtown Los Angeles for us tonight, giving us an idea of how things are on the ground for us right now. Tom?
You know what, Juan, right now it just feels a bit tense in the sense that I think there's a lot of anger here out on the street. There's a lot of people who are very, they're frustrated. They feel like some of the tactics out here have been heavy-handed. Again, I'm not saying whether they all have or have not been. I'm just saying I think that there's definitely a sense of, the volatility, the sort of like any moment, tempers could explode. It just feels like that kind of that level of kind of uncertainty, and I think it's been now days and days of people of anger and rage, and what we just saw just play out a few minutes ago was it appeared protesters or people here in the crowd firing fireworks into the line where CHP and LAPD officers were standing, over and over and over again, and CHP then responding by using their less than lethal devices, which included anything from I think it was some sort of pepper spray or pepper bomb. They were firing these canisters, doing whatever they could to kind of get the crowd to disperse, and to a certain extent it is. And I mean, look at the contrast here. We have a food truck right here, just beyond where you have a massive police column. Of kind of where we have all the way down at the end of the block here. So it just gives you a sense of the two different things going on in LA tonight. You have this corner of the city where basically I think the reason why people ended up back in this area is because they were flushed out of the main part of where they were protesting earlier, which was right by
smoke to disperse the crowd. They're using pepper balls as well because these protesters just keep advancing on them. Earlier today, another one of our crews, a photographer and a reporter, got hit with these rounds too. So you really got to take a second to just get away from them and continue on toward what's going on out here. Sorry, I'm just tapping right back into our speaker so I can hear you guys. And so that's what they've been dealing with all day. Police just walking in formation down the street. We have another video we wanted to show you because this is like the minority of the people out here in the crowd. Mostly people are kind of just protesting, and then you have a couple of people doing more than everyone else. So this guy in the yellow shirt, if you can see him here, was just taunting the National Guard troops who were protecting the federal building earlier, kept going back for them when they were telling him to leave, and they weren't having any of it. So eventually, a couple of minutes later, they caught up with that guy and detained him, likely arrested him. And, obviously this is a community here in Santa Ana that has a lot of immigrant families, many who just say they're out here standing up for what they believe is right, trying to keep their families together. Santa Ana is Orange County's only sanctuary city, actually, and the police department says they don't work with federal authorities on these immigration enforcement raids, but they say their police departments, their officers also can't use their resources to interfere with them. And so that's how they kind of get caught up in the middle of this, where they have these big fireworks blasting off in the middle of the city at night. This, of course, in response to reports of multiple immigration enforcement operations in Orange County today. Don't have the locations on those confirmed just yet, but this was the result of this out here tonight. Actually, Santa Ana City Council members last month moved toward a program that would create an alert system to notify people if they get word of any immigration enforcement operation. Unclear if anyone got the word of that in advance of this today, but they have certainly mobilized out here this afternoon and tonight to, make their stance out here and say they don't believe that these raids are right. Obviously, some of these activities we're seeing out here are not appropriate behavior either, probably not helping the cause, but most of the people out here in the crowd are just kind of saying whatever messages they have. You can see all those police down here in the street, and again, we have dozens of National Guard troops behind us with Humvees. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Yeah, we're seeing things change minute by minute, hour by hour out there, Nicole. All right, thank you for that.
All right, we're going to continue our live team coverage now with KCAL's Lori Perez, also live in downtown LA for us tonight. Just Lori.
Yeah, we're actually not that far from where Tom is, but boy, what a difference it is where we are. This is an intersection that not so long ago was filled with protesters facing off with police. Then about an hour ago, police started to cuff people after repeated announcements asking them to go home, telling them to leave this area.